let's get going with our march on the offense. With first of all, I'd like to thank Angela Kornegor, who almost all of you know. But Angela, thanks for being here with us. Angela is the CEO of MedLearn Media, as most of you know, and has an amazing transformation story in the job that she's now had for almost 2 years. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. So today, I think this is a unique opportunity and kind of a case story to focus on radical transformation while staying true to the vision of the company. And as most of you know, we live in a world where there's a lot of private equity money flying around above most of us, though some people on this call have access to some of that capital. But it's pretty, one of the reasons that deals fail most frequently is that transformation occurs, but the spirit of the organization is lost or the culture is lost. And as we've witnessed many times, the result is usually disaster. So this is kind of an upbeat, Angela's story is an upbeat version of staying true. So for those of you who, again, many people on the call know Angela very well. So, but for those of you, could you just give us the real quick run through on your career curve recently and how you got to this wonderful position, just to start out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I became the CEO about 20 months ago. So he was right, just a little under 2 years. And prior to that, I was the chief operating officer. So in that role, I, faced the pandemic. So that was where we started to really struggle with what was going on in the market. We had 2 years of significant loss. And that was in 21 and 2022. So as I moved into the CEO role, it was, hey, we need to contract to stabilize, and then we need to contract to grow. So we had 2 phases that we were working on when I moved into that role. And we did complete our contract to stabilize, which is what we'll talk about today. And then right now we're in our contract to grow process.
That's fantastic. And in the conversations I've had with you previously and in setting up this call, your clarity around how to working the business plan to get from point A to point C and beyond. And I know your goals for 2025 are spectacular. So, that clarity, I think, is really helpful. So so you came in after 2 years of huge loss. Obviously, there's a mandate, but you got an unusual leadership structure compared to some of us. So could maybe just talk about how you got the support about the plan or how that process worked out, and then we can go into contraction to stabilize. So
Yeah. So the mandate, so when David and I talked about this, he's like, what's the mandate today? 2025 is your mandate for how you work through the adversity. And so I wrote this down just to make it kind of a takeaway for everyone. Is the mandate is align through repetition. That was number 1 through the contract to stabilize, aligned with repetition. Then it was transparent communication, because as you work with team, not everybody has the same experiences. They may see things differently. They may have different levels of kind of fear, especially in adverse times. I think back to the pandemic, we're all displaced. It was a very chaotic time. So align the team through repetition, transparent communication, seek buy-in. That was the biggest one too. In hindsight, if there was more of that, I could have done. And, from this, we've created a better recipe for, making better cookies along the way, basically. Is that seeking buy-in to before we implement those changes. And then the last part is having a very clear why, because really that's what drives everybody. What's the why? And all of us are in it for our clients. We're here for our customers. We service healthcare, very similar to EV medicine, but we're on a different audience markets. We're not in the emergency department, but we're on compliance. So right now, obviously a lot of changes, a lot of changes going on. So compliance, revenue cycle, healthcare coding. And we knew that going through the pandemic, we had 70% of our client base was furloughed, literally furloughed, because they were the radiology, the cardiology practices. If during the pandemic, you didn't go in for just a CAT scan or a CT or an MR, you didn't, you know, you only went in for life threatening situations, and that was at a hospital. So we really had to kind of reshake and reshuffle who were we during that time frame. And the biggest, you know, kind of look back was bringing everybody up to what's our why. You know, we needed to stay in. We didn't want to shut the doors, close down. We know our content helps healthcare. It makes their life so much easier with what they do. That, you know, what do we need to do in a short term and a long term process to align the team, move forward with what our customers needed at that time to be able to
Yeah.
stabilize.
Yeah. Could we, because I think the power here is, could we talk about alignment a little bit? Because
Yeah.
you had an existing workforce that was functioning, but you're also now contracting to try to get and all these words are really good to get that repetition you're talking about. I know that's going to impact your profitability, but you had to get the alignment of a board, so an alignment up, and maybe you could just talk about that process. Was it the first 60 days or what happened there? And then you had to change the way everybody in the organization was thinking about it. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
as I was obviously in conversations with you back when you were going through this, and what you were doing seemed kind of
Yeah.
amazing. You know, we were all applauding you, but could you talk about the hard work you had to do the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
month, let's say? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I report through a board of directors of 6 individuals, you know, radiologists,
Yeah.
past CFOs, kind of a mix of experience levels. So I had to report to the board on a 3-lever basically roadmap of, hey, here's plan A, here's plan B, and here's plan C. And along each plan, here are the different steps we're going to take. And if we don't hit these milestones for revenue or expenses, we're going to pull these levers. So it's a pretty in-depth process that I had to roll up and strategically plan out, you know, hours and hours of going through the P&L, looking at product stats, a lot of stuff solo, then bringing it to the board to get their buy-in of, you know, were they on board with this? Because the changes we were going to make, we knew we would have, especially because one of the biggest changes, we were going to have to sunset some of our non-profitable products that were legacy items that had been there for a while. I mean, like 30 years. I had one of the board members, you know, is really invested in a couple of the products. So trying to get the board member to, you know, that product's not quite at the level that it used to be, you know, was a difficult, you know, challenge. But putting that plan together, getting their buy-in, and once, and that was actually probably a 3 to 9 or a 2 to 3 month process, a good 90-day process, because we did have to move, but we had to. I mean, and you've got 6 different board members all over the U.S. You know, some are retired, so that was a challenge, just getting everybody aligned to come back and talk about it. But once the
Yeah.
board had buy-in and they were on board, then it was rolling it out to the team, and that was where I feel like the roll up was easier to align than the roll down, because now you're moving someone's cheese. You know, you did like you know,
Yeah.
one example is, you know, we discontinued 2 legacy newsletters, and they were digital products. But I had an editor that spent half of their time, literally 20 hours a week, working on those newsletters. Did a great job. He's phenomenal, like just amazing. But, you know, discontinuing that product now, you know, realigned
Yeah.
his workload. So we had to make some adjustments of cutting contractors to save
Yeah.
our internal team members, taking their work, putting it on full-time internal team members, which maybe wasn't something they were comfortable doing. They didn't have a lot of experience. They didn't really want to do. But I knew for the company, it'd be great because you get a high-level
Yeah.
experience, you get talent, you get new, fresh eyes. But that isn't always something that, you know, maybe a team member really wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Could we, there's, I think there are about 15 things in what you just said that I'd love to talk about at great length, that I'll try to stay on topic a little bit. Can I ask, the fact that you just said you have a board and it was easy in 2 to 3 months. That's extraordinary. I've never heard another publisher with a board say that. Did you use any? I know we've got like Helen and Tim I see on the call, so we got some world-class consulting power on this call. Did you use any outside resources, or did you have to was it sort of Angela going to the board and saying, here's the plan, team? I mean,
Yeah, it was, yes, it was. I've got a really good relationship with our board. I've worked with them for a
yeah,
number of years. So I know what they want to see. So one of my finance committee directors, he wants data, he wants finances, and he was my CEO of a prior company. I just kind of went with him. So he groomed me in regards to how to set up like zero-based budgeting and how to report analytics that he likes.
yeah,
So I made sure that I always try to, again, on the offense, I try to make sure that I report the data that will support the story that's defensible, that we can do back of the envelope looks at it. We can poke some holes in it. He always has me come back and do 3 or 4 different versions of it, but I know what he
yeah,
wants. So I really try to anticipate the board members that I need to potentially influence a little more than the other ones with what they need.
yeah,
He's also he's very respected. Like the whole board respects him. So I like to use, and it's logical. Like I follow his logic. So I like to use that data set. And so
yeah,
we budget every year based upon some of his methodology. And so I used
yeah,
that to
yeah,
share, here's where we're at. If we were cutting this product, these products are doing these things at just a budget time, we would go through these
yeah,
processes.
yeah. I mean, just from my own experience with working with boards in various circumstances like that, that I mean, there's usually an element of mutual respect on the board, but there isn't that level of connection and transparency and mutual understanding, I think. And so that I suspect has a huge amount to do with why you succeeded so quickly with a 1 year turnaround. But you also had that same kind of respect, I guess you'd say, going down. You've been moved from the COO to the CEO. And you mentioned one case of a really good editor who suddenly 50% of their job disappeared. Can you talk about the kind of the transparency thing? And I would also say, as all of you know who have been on these calls before, the chat's here. So if there's something that really interests you, please chime in on the chat. So I don't dominate Angela's time because I love talking to you, Angela, about what you did. But can you talk about I guess the transparency and alignment, because you had to move people quite a bit.
Yeah, that took longer than
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to the board. And so,
yeah,
I mean, to get a little granular, we would have biweekly product meetings where we had a product manager, editorial team, our project administrator. And so we
yeah,
actually, for about 2 months, reviewed job descriptions of the roles and looked at like what we could realign and move from it. Like who's doing duplicate things that are product related, because some of us have been with the company for a number of years. So there's a lot of things that should be on someone else's plate, but you just do it because you've been doing it for a long time. So there were 4 of us involved with that. One was the editor, and we went through all of our job descriptions, and we started to, once we all saw what everybody was doing and what could get moved and what should be somewhere else and what shouldn't be. That took about 2 months because there were a lot of like, oh, I'm doing that, I think I should do it. Nope, that should be over here. That should actually be a marketing function. No, that should actually be in
yeah.
customer care. So
Wow, wow,
literally, I mean, kind of baby steps, but that's what helped
yeah,
visually, kind of bring everybody to see it at the same, where when we made the decision of, hey, we're gonna, discontinue these 2 products, which in turn is gonna allow this resource to do these additional things that are on all of our lists that, they would be better suited than the rest of us. And then look at the other time, right? Each one of us will have to
yeah,
do these type of things. So that was 2 months of just literally role alignment.
yeah. As you know, in Phoenix, we talked a lot about organizational audits, which is a buzzword term to describe what you're saying. Did you literally end up, I'm picturing your organization chart? Did you have different branches on the organization chart, or was it more moving tasks around after you went through this 2 month exercise?
It
Because I
was
think
more,
almost everybody
yeah.
on the call, I know Louise, she did a ton of this in her current job, and a lot of other people here have done the same thing.
Yeah, it was mostly moving projects and tasks. They all stayed within the same functions. Prior
Yeah,
to that, we had already made some of the alignments where we had like 2 product managers, and during our heavy losses, we did make some role adjustments where we parted ways with one product manager, went to one product manager. So we'd already done that prior. At this point, it was just projects, initiatives.
yeah,
There were other things too, which was kind of enlightening. And I think it was refreshing that we decided, why are we even doing that? Let's just get rid of that. Let's cross that off there. Like, that's a report we don't even need anymore. That's why waste the time. So it
Can
was
you mention
positive.
a specific there or something? Because that's a wonderful feeling. And at BVR, we've gone through and changed our KPIs and everything, and it totally changes the
Yeah.
activities that people are. It
Yeah.
changes the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had so our project admin who supports the group was running a bi-weekly product rationalization report, which was very intense. It took her hours to run through a variety of data sets for all of our products. And we have a slew of, like 60 different products amongst 3 different brands. And it would take her hours. And so, when we looked at how much time she's spending, if she absorbed some of the things that, our editor could take on that really fit with his role. When she brought up that, hey, this takes me so long, we actually discovered half of us don't look at it as often as she sends it out. Like, I would look at it once a quarter. So we all kind of confessed our sins of, hey, you send that bi-weekly, but we don't really need that. So that was just one report that took her literally 4 to 6 hours every other week to run. That now she
Yeah,
does every 2 months instead of
yeah,
every 2 weeks.
yeah. Can I paraphrase Jack's comment? You're just because one of the other things you mentioned was buy-in
Mhm.
as one of the key
Mhm.
lead things, and Jack sort of asked about again, Jack. I'll just the sort of question about, okay, we're taking something off your plate. How do you get people excited going forward? Um, and I know you had to move a bunch of people. Can you just talk about like the buy-in issue on this?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, at first when you talk about getting time back, so obviously we're all small companies. We talk a lot. We do a lot of Eisenhower kind of matrix breaking down. Tier 1 work, tier 2 work, tier 3, or just cut it, right? Delegate, cut when you get to tier 3 or tier 4. So we try to use that terminology where we're going to, rebook something, or tier 2 it, we'll do it in 2 weeks. The buy-in was when there were more projects that we really wanted to have at a tier 1 and tier 2, but we couldn't get to it, was, hey, if we take that 6 hours every 2 weeks and we apply it to, now we can get to the work that's urgent and important. It's not quite like, it's not at the level of tier 1, we have to get it done tomorrow, but like it's things that if we do it, it'll be more impactful. So, and what's challenging with that is it's not a black and white checklist or mathematical equation that, hey, 1 + 1 will equal 2. That's
Yeah,
the most challenging thing with what we went through and what we still go through with that is, it's more of a feeling and an intuition at first. Like in theory, you're like, great, I'll get 6 hours back a week. But when all of a sudden it's faced with, now what do I do with that time, right? So many other little things pop up. You have to get even more disciplined to make sure that, hey, we gave you that time back to do
yeah,
these things, not to now do other miscellaneous stuff. So
yeah,
there was a lot of that, kind of ongoing discussion, and it still is. We're constantly talking about time management over and over and over again. It like never ends,
yeah,
and it shouldn't.
yeah. Angela, you're getting a lot of compliments in the
Oh,
chat, like
oh, thank you.
sort of
I'm
along the
not looking
lines
at
of,
them.
that's because you're such a nice person. Everybody else would
Oh,
have had a terrible time with this. So I guess be a nice person is one of the, based on Suzanne's comment and stuff like that. But did so that you I'm not sure everybody's familiar with the Eisenhower thing, but prioritizing the quality of the work you're doing, kind of. Did you lead all of those meetings? Were you
yeah,
at the head of all those meetings with the
yes,
4 people?
yes,
And you
yep,
literally went through everybody's sort of job and said, okay, this doesn't fit.
yep,
Uh, Describe just a
yeah.
little bit. Well,
We had everybody edit their own job description. So we literally said, here's a copy, and even
wow,
myself grabbed my job description and we
wow.
added at the end of it anything that wasn't on your current literal job description that you're doing. And then we reviewed them. So that's why it took a
Uh,
while. We literally would take our 60-minute standing meeting and say, okay, let's look over Angela's role. And that's again, that
yeah,
transparency. Like I will share 100% of what I'm doing. And I want everybody else to, because
yeah,
we're all in this together. And there's humility
yeah,
and there's humbleness. There's so many positives with that. And there's nothing to ever not talk about.
yeah,
So, that's
yeah,
where we would look through it and that's where we would question each other. and not question in a bad
And
way, question in a seeking to
yeah,
understand, like, what does that mean? So if you're doing that, is that helping you? Is that impactful? Like, oh, we're both doing
yeah,
that. It was very
yeah,
eye-opening.
yeah. And I mean, you were in Phoenix with the group there. There were so many people who were going through versions of this where terms like trust, love, like those of us who have relatively stronger teams that we've worked on for years now, the EB medicine group there, everybody gets along pretty well at EB medicine, and that, that trust or respect or whatever you're talking about there, I think the fact that you had it going up and going down is obviously essential to the fact that you were able to change relatively quickly and and successfully so far. So is there anything else that quickly comes to mind just on you've gone through this exercise of sort of transparent job description review? We're exiting some practices and some products.
Mhm.
Any other high point that comes to mind where, it's like, aha, we're going to get rid of that and move in this direction? Just,
I don't know if there's any other ahas. I think the biggest takeaway from going through that process was it's a repeatable process that we can use anytime we want to make an adjustment. And
yeah,
kind of, I look back and there were times we've done it over the years where, back with a prior company, right, in '08 and '09, when there was a, big shift in the market and economy, you always just have to be prepared with whatever curveball, right, internal, external,
yeah,
that's you're going to face as an organization. And how do you get your team to buy in with the changes that you're going to have to make? Like I
yeah,
know organizations where it was forced, and that doesn't always, I mean, sometimes it gets the job done, but as a small company, your resources are your team members. And if everybody's not rowing the boat the same way, that's going to be an issue. So it might take a little longer, but you do get loyalty. I mean, we have some team members that have been with the company for, years. So you
yeah,
get loyalty, you do get trust. And I also really think about I love learning, like that's just a passion of learning and just anything new. And I
yeah,
think if you can
yeah,
inspire others to learn and kind of improve, it'll help them at their future career. I mean, if they don't stay with us and they go somewhere different, it'll help them do well. And I find
yeah,
pride in that. Like I'm continually
yeah,
assisting, so those are my ahas, is just kind of you see so much about different people where you're like, okay, how can I now I know this about that person, how can I motivate them on the next initiative? There's not a one size fits all with people. So those are
yeah,
my
yeah,
ahas, I think, through that process.
yeah, yeah. No, no, that's spectacular. One other question just on logistics. I'm partially asking it because, as you know, I'm the chair of Copyright Clearance Center, and we're having our 3-year strategy meeting, which is a case where the board, and CCC has a very large board, and senior management, we're going to spend 2.5 days together in Sarasota coming up. And that, I would say, because the employees of CCC know the work better than the board does, it's not like the board coming in and giving directives, which would be preposterous. It's the benefit of doing that together is education and alignment. So if a year from now the organization gets in trouble, the board's up to speed and can help, rather than being like, you idiots, you screwed it up. So did you have any interaction board employee during this, or were you sort of, you were the center you were the lever, I guess I would say.
I was the lever except during the budgeting time. So
Yeah.
I invited my chairman and 2 of our finance committee board members, so 3 of the 6, to
Yeah.
join our budgeting meetings so that they could hear directly from the team,
Wow.
be
Wow.
involved. And one of
Cool.
the finance chairs came to, we could be 3 different brands, so we break them down, our budget meetings by brand. So he did come, and the goal there was
Yeah.
that he could hear our team. I mean, I wanted him to get FaceTime with the team. He hears the names,
Yeah.
he hears about things. So he did come to our budget meetings. So that was
Yeah.
where I brought him in with the team.
Yeah. No, I mean, for a line, everybody's hearing the same message, so that's pretty effective. I the Louise, do you want to jump in? But as I also noticed that Suzanne's commented that all this buy-in and stuff like that, there, we used to joke there are two types of people in a publishing buy-in. There's everyone, and then there's the editorial staff separately. So I noticed, Suzanne's kind of referred to that. I used to joke that you could always tell who the editors were at my old company because they were the ones hiding under their desks. There was always a unique, but maybe I'll leave Suzanne's comment at that point. But Louise, do you want to jump in on your comment, and then Ed jump in on yours? Louise, if I don't know. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry to drag you in, Louise, but
it's fine.
yeah.
No, I'm really enjoying it, and we're going through a similar process. I'm quite a similar way of doing it. But one of the questions I'd be interested if you could answer is what was your elephant in the room? What was the one bit that you put on it, or was crunchy, or that you just maybe would have done differently, or just the thing that you didn't want to look at it because it's just too awful?
Gosh, that's tough. I don't know if there was one elephant. There were a lot of elephants. I mean, I think really there was. I mean, I think our biggest elephant, which I'm a little more on the mathematical side because I've had to be the last few years, so I start with that. But we had 2 years of a loss, so we weren't able to do raises for 2 years, right? So you're dealing with change management with people, but yet you're not able to compensate, right? So, I would talk about it though. We would talk about it because we every year we share our budget, our transparency, but that was a tough one because you're all asking people to take on, maybe you're shuffling roles, you're losing something, you're getting something, but it's still something new they have to learn, they have to do, and we're not compensating them. So that was, a crunchy piece. There were definitely more, but that was a big one because we didn't have the money.
Yeah, it's so much easier to do exciting reviews when you're saying, and here's a compensation raise too. Yeah, it's like, we're wonderful, you're wonderful, do this new thing. Yeah, that in a small business, I've been one of the mandates for growth. Like you said, Louise and Angela, is so you can support your best people, and hey, you're fantastic, but I can't give you any money is just a much harder conversation. Yeah. No, I really mean it. You're really fantastic. And I'm sure we could talk about elephants, and maybe at the end we can all do a group elephant exercise because I'm sure there are a bunch more. Ed, do you want to jump in or?
Sure. Yeah, I had a slight different direction, but I'll add on to that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That conversation about you're wonderful, but there isn't more money right now. You can have that with great performers, but along like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth time you're having that same conversation with them, it doesn't get easier each time you have to do it. So it's challenging. I wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction because I think when you're talking about turnarounds and new CEO and a new woman CEO, everything is about gender. Gender is always at play here, and you had an all-male board. Am I correct in recalling that all of your predecessors had been male?
Yes, correct.
I remember having conversations with you about this, and I think I had not long before that learned of the concept of the glass cliff for women, that, oh, the business is doing bad, let's have another white male guy try to fix it. Oh, it's still doing bad, let's throw another white guy at it. Oh, now it's really doing bad, we're at a point of existential crisis, let's have a woman do it. If she fails,
this is the history of Harvard University you're reading right now. What are you talking about? Yeah,
it's the history of corporate America.
Yeah.
So I had that concern for you that when you brought this up was, have they waited so freaking long that now they're throwing a ship at you to lead a ship that has too many holes in it, and obviously you've done an amazing job. And as you said, having a strong, really strong relationship with an influential board member was enormously helpful. But
Mhm.
what I wanted to mention, I know, and I know even in your negotiations with about taking this role on, that you did an amazing job right from the start. And I wanted to see if you wanted to comment on anything in that area, because I think we have the good fortune of working in a fairly enlightened industry, but we still got a long way to go. And you did a ton of things really right on that side of things as well.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Ed. Yeah, and Ed is right. I talked to him before I made the decision to take this role. I was kind of debating, as well as John Hitchcock on here, debating like, do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? Because I was nervous. I was apprehensive. I mean, we had a significant loss that we had to turn around. And as a COO, I knew what plans we had to do, but there was a lot more that needed to be done. So we did have a different CEO. So while I was a COO, we had a CEO for the 2 years of the loss. And they, did bring the CEO, and he was great gentleman, brought him in from outside the organization, not in healthcare, not in our markets. And I did get looked over, right? Where I felt at that time my feelings were hurt a little bit, like I could have taken that role, but I didn't. And I'm Minnesota nice, so that's kind of some of our Midwestern. It's where David says you're nice, or Suzanne says that, right? That's kind of our thing around here. And I, took it and just stuck in my, COO role, nose to the ground, learned a lot from him. But that was a challenge. So when the board decided to part ways with the current CEO. And it was kind of funny how they brought it up. They were like laughing. And we can joke about it now, but kind of like, hey, Angela, we should have just gave it to you. I mean, look at how well you're doing on an operational side. You're cleaning all these things up. Like every operating expense, like, wow. Maybe we just needed to bring somebody in that, and show you that you could do this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, okay, thanks. But I mean, that's literally how they offered me the job, was just, hey, it didn't work with him, but we think you can do it. And so I did think about it, talked to Ed, a few other resources, and came back and said, okay, if we're going to do this, here's our plan, negotiate a few other things, and, here we are. And it has gone well, right? I mean, that's the thing, is I took a chance on myself, which was good. Because it was, my husband, I remember telling me, like, and I think Ed, you said it too, is this ship, is it going down? There's nothing we can do to, to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have turned
Yeah.
around
Great new
180%
job.
gain.
Yeah. Yeah. John?
Yeah, I told her
Yeah.
she was nuts.
Is
Yeah,
that a question? Yeah.
The am I on mute?
Nope, you're not.
Nope, you're good.
Yeah, so yeah, no, you were nuts, Angela, for taking this. But the one thing that I knew would save your company was your clarity. I mean, obfuscation is the enemy in situations like this. You are so damn clear. And this is not meant to be a 365 day, 360-degree review of you as a CEO by any stretch.
Yeah,
but you're great.
It's going pretty well now.
Virtue, I think, is you are such a straight shooter. I mean, the fact that your staff knows that you're having losses, number one. I mean, because most CEOs would go until their last day before admitting that they were dealing with loss situations. And boards that don't know the subject, and boards particularly who do know the subjects, either way, they need to be told very, very clear terms what's going on. And too often, I particularly rely on obfuscation.
Yeah.
And which doesn't work. So yeah.
Do you want to talk about, because you and I talked about and by the way, we obviously have to provide counseling for John, and his obfuscation thing, and also Louise, who's completely angry now by this discussion. So we're definitely gonna have to do group therapy at the end of this one. But one of the things you talked about is your power statement, like as something on clarity, and could you maybe just talk about that? Because like your power as a centering leader, which you're now getting all sorts of compliments on, so this is really great. But maybe talk about that, or anything else that comes to mind along. You did a lot of change and you kept goodwill, and that's worth looking at. Jack's put a bunch of comments in there too. So I think,
And Jack, I love all your,
yeah,
emojis.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah, so from a power statement, so from aligning the team, right, through, the process we went through with just the editorial, sunsetting a couple products, we applied that same concept with any change we were making going forward. And the
yeah.
one piece missing was education to align the team. There wasn't, we don't have a lot of mentors, we don't no coaches. That's just something a lot of us don't get anymore. That's why we all come to Renewed, right? We have a group of resources we can
Yeah.
tap into. So I did some very inexpensive, kind of old school, took some steps by investing, buying my marketing specialist and myself. We went through the Don Miller story brand book to redefine, hey, now we've sunset some products, we're focusing on different areas. Our communication and message doesn't quite align with who we are now. So we need a new story brand. And if anyone hasn't read that book, it's phenomenal because it not only talks about how to redefine your story brand for how do you help your client be the hero, but it also talks about aligning your team on that same message. So we read that book together to redefine our messaging that we put now in the front of most of our marketing information that just gives a little easier touch point. And then on the sales side, we did a very similar process where we did a book review. I took the buying a book and reading it and talking about it together to the next level. We actually took a 6-week process and we took a few chapters at a time and took in our sales meeting. I assigned each team member to report on a couple chapters and ask the team questions, but we read The New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg, which he talks a lot, and it was so serendipitous because it aligns to Story Brand, where he talks about developing your power statement. So we actually took, how are we we took our Story Brand message and put it into a power statement that now our sales team can utilize. They're armed when they go out with a very concise message that aligns with who we are now today with our, different set of products. But still the same core values. I mean, we're here to help our customers be a hero. That's really what we are. We're the guide to help elevate them. So
Yeah.
2 books was, again, very affordable process, really helped kind of coach employees.
Yeah, that's to do that as a team is extraordinary. Can because I know we're talking about the reduce to stabilize.
Yeah.
The next one will be the reduce to grow, but I would imagine going through that process hugely helps with focus because during a period of transition, I'm sure many of you are seeing, like right now, I feel like new ideas and new revenue streams, whether it's AI related, they're just yesterday or 2 days ago, we got a call from PricewaterhouseCoopers asking about licensing content into their internal tools, so there are like the technology, everything else that's going on. There are more opportunities than my organization could possibly process. So having a clear mandate, which we have from the work we did with Collingwood, Tim's here, like the most powerful thing for me is to be able to say that's not on the plan. Like it's a great idea. Let's not talk about it anymore. And Lucretia and I have that conversation a lot. Did you have the same kind of like we finally put some rails up here or something? Sorry, that was a long question, but
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely, it's kind of it's kind of the EOS concept. We definitely talk a lot about that. Like that's not on our core initiative. So everything we've gotten to this year, we literally have 3 KPIs. Every year we, as we've gone through this process, we're trying to make things simpler and clearer, simpler and clearer. So we do, I'd say in the last 6 months, very heavy discussions of things, a lot of shiny toys come up and it sounds great, so much fun, but no, we need to put it back over here. So there's a lot, and my biggest share with the team is if I bring something up that's shiny, go ahead and put me in check. Like I've got a really great project administrator. She's amazing. And she'll be like, hey, she'll tell me like, let's table that. Let's put it over here. Or let's put that in a queue. Like we try to, everyone, if it's not aligned to our 3 KPIs this year, we don't do it. Like it has to be aligned to those 3 KPIs. It's not that it's a great idea. We don't want to listen to it. We don't want to hear about it, but it's not going to be anything we're going to take time, energy, and resources right now. And on the sales side, we just finished the Mike Weinberg book just in January. So we literally like 2 months ago. And I love how our sales team will bring it up in different meetings. We intentionally read it at the end of the year because we were going live with HubSpot in February. So I wanted to get the team you know, just thinking differently about workflows now that they're going to have a new CRM working, you know, working
Yeah,
with them.
yeah,
So now we're doing kind of, we call them learn, do, delivers, but we're doing these examples where we're having the team come and show the sales team how they're utilizing HubSpot. Now it's 30 days in, how are you using it? And some of them are utilizing the Mike Weinberg terminology about being laser focused. Like, here's my targeted list. Here's why I'm calling them. Here's my sequence, my workflow. And that's
yeah,
what's been, yeah, I hope that's answering your question. Like that's kind of the clarity that's helping the team.
yeah,
Did I
yeah.
answer
What
your
are,
question?
yeah, totally. And you're getting a bunch of responses on it too. What are the KPIs? Like, we're focus average account value is now a top one for us, which from a KPI point of view sort of ties into what you said about making the customer the winner. You know, or you use much
Become the
better
hero.
language. The
Yeah.
hero. Yeah, that
Mhm.
average account value is sort of a KPI that supports that. You know, like,
Yeah.
we've given you so much more to empower. Are you using similar KPIs, or what are the measurements?
A little bigger. So we're, for the company, we actually tied some incentives and other things tied to it. So we're focusing on 3 product lines that are our biggest growth area. So we want to have a 16% growth in our subscription line from where we ended last year. We want a 23% growth in our print and kind of tangible products, we'll call it. And then a 30% growth in our events, which are basically paid webinars and webcasts that have CEUs with them. So we just took 3 product lines that we know we want to grow and just put a target on them. And through our budgeting process, went through a back of the envelope defensibility testing of, hey, we ended here last year. This is where we ended at. Do we think we can maintain that by adding these new products with this type of a target
Yeah.
that averages what it has been, price increase? We'll get to those numbers. So those are the 3
Yeah.
KPIs from a high level we talk about. We report them out every 6 weeks of where our numbers are. And then now that we're in HubSpot, we're going to develop some secondary KPIs that are going to be like, for our sales team, we want to focus on like our top 15 customers, you know, by spend. So we're going to be working on different dashboards and reports to look at what's the opportunity for those based upon where they're at to help get to our big picture KPIs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's gorgeous. And once again, I would say, now Louise is comparing herself to Theresa May, so we've got kind of an emotional crisis going on in this call. So, Louise, we love you. You are not Theresa May. You know, you are so much more than that. But anyway, so they're definitely still financial KPIs, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, um, that interesting. And just we're right at the end now, and and I gotta say, I've enjoyed the chat group on this one. Like, totally. Angela, you should just print this out and put it on your bulletin board. If you're ever feeling a little low, you're getting the love here on this one. So
Oh, good.
so
I try
and
not to look because I want to focus. So
yeah. Okay, even my cat just jumped on. My
oh,
cat wants to be involved now. So the you know, and also obviously thanks for doing this with me again too. But the maybe a good way to close out, like, obviously the topic today was the transformation of the people in the organization, but just at the end you're mentioning switching CRMs and the technology, the and obvious that's for the next call maybe, but the transformation is organization wide. It's just not the people and the jobs and the stuff like that. It's caused you to change your infrastructure, your leadership approach, the dialogue and stuff like that. So it sounds like the financial reporting has altered and everything. Any sort of closing comment just on, you've obviously stayed true to your vision, but you've kind of changed everything. Any wrap up comment about that? Yeah.
I think, you know, I look at like, I try to think about my recipe, right? So I wrote a couple things down just because when we were thinking about this is don't be afraid to
Yeah.
get gritty. I'm very roll your arms up and get gritty, which I know when I talked to Ed
Yeah.
about it, you know, you got to also look ahead. That was kind of my biggest, from a COO to a CEO, how do I do both? But get gritty with strategic plans, team alignment, transparency, and a lot of short and long-term goals that are very public. So everybody knows that if we're doing something short-term with the strategic plan, that maybe that pain that they're feeling or that uncomfortableness during that change isn't going to last forever. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. It's getting gritty.
Yeah.
And you have to, as a leader, you got to get involved and show like, hey, we're going to all take this on for just 3 months, right? But after that, it'll feel better. Like it's going to get better. It's not going to be there forever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point too. Yeah, because your best people will work really hard on a short term. Okay, let's get this out by May 1 or whatever. I mean, and it'll, if you do it right, it's fun and exciting, but it if it's not transparent,
Yes, and clear.
it feels like the decision's coming from somewhere else. Maybe that's an advantage we have as generally smaller businesses. Like you said, you're in the room on all these discussions. So if somebody doesn't agree with it, they're going to raise their hand. It's not like a bunch of alien people on a golf course somewhere who you've never met who are saying 20%, that makes a big difference. You're there with them. We're at the end of time, so that was just tremendous. Your energy, your clarity, your strategic thinking. All the other compliments you got. You can just go back and reread those again. So as I always do at the end of all these sessions, I remind all of you that we're all in this great community together. Angela was in Phoenix, so we were all talking about this. Where it's easy to keep the conversations going. We've now got the Circle forum we can all use if we want to stay in touch with one another. So let's keep the dialogue going into the future. And Renewed's got a bunch of things coming up in the next couple months, and then the summit in June. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you there. Many of you are speakers at the summit, so I know I'll see you guys. So anyway, Angela, that was fantastic. Here's the success in 2025 for all of us. So and those of you in the UK, if you could drive to wherever Louise is and make sure she's okay. cover for us. So it wouldn't be the same without you, Louise. So take care. Okay. Best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.